Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming back to check our second video of this lesson. So as we mentioned before, we just introduced what is a complex number. This is like a very big system for us to understand. And this is the biggest number system, so it includes all kinds of number we've learned. Now, and we just want to, give you the very quick refresh your memory. So we have two ways to demonstrate this. Just choose either way that makes sense to you to understand this. And you can definitely, when you take notes, you can definitely add more components, like list more examples in this tree diagram to help you understand this. So as I mentioned, like we can do, for example, we can do 3 plus 4, we can do 5 times -7, we can do operations of real number. Then how do we do operations of complex number? So it's actually nothing new. When we do operations of complex number, it's very similar when we deal with expression with variables. But this time, just remember, this I does have a definition, which is called square root of -1. So please keep that in mind. Okay, now let's work on this one. So as we can see here, we have the first complex number 2 minus 3i plus 3 minus 4i. So in order to do that, I'm going to put the real parts together, which is 2 plus 3, and the imaginary part together, -3i minus 4i. So all we need to do is like combine like terms. I'm going to write down here to remind us. 2 plus 3 is 5, minus 3i minus 4i minus 7i. We are finished. So that's it. That's how do we do the complex number. It's very similar to when we deal with expressions with variables, right? But again, we do have definition for I. So when we deal with this, we always deal with real number part and imaginary part separately. So please keep that in mind. So now, sometimes we do need to deal with negative sign here, so I'm going to break down the negative sign. So negative becomes positive. So let's deal with imaginary part and real part. So real part 3, -3, 0 is gone. And for real imaginary part 7i and I, so 7i plus I, which is 8i. Then that's our final answer. See, the final answer is simplified as 8i. That's how do we do adding or subtraction. Let's check next one here. Last example, as you can see, we actually this time dealing with multiplication. So some student might say, then how do we start? So think about this. When you do, so what's the first will you do? You can definitely pause here to think about this. Probably you can even do that. So is, yes, you're right. When we do that, of course, well, the first thing we are going to think about is distributive property. So 2i times 1, 2i. I'm going to write down here and break down this 2i times 3i. I keep the negative sign here so I don't change the sign. So when we do the multiplication here, I want to stop here to do the 2i and 3i first, and then we come back here, okay? So let's write down a little bit side notes here. 2i times 3i. When we deal with this, it's very similar to the way we do like 2x times 3x. 2 times 3 is 6, x times x, x squared. Same thing here. 2 times 3 is 6, I times I squared. So some student might wonder, we stop here, so that's the answer. So here is a very big, very important part for you to understand. So we know the I is radical -1, square root of -1. Then I square is what? Think about this. Like do this on your own. So remember, just like radical 2, so this is actually same as radical -1 square, right? So radical 2 times radical 2 is radical square, which is radical 2 times radical 2, which is radical 4, which is 2. As you can see, whenever we square the square root part, the square root symbol is gone. So that's why when you square it, square root symbol is gone, which is -1. So I want you to find a place in your notebook and to highlight this information. I square equal to -1. This is a very important feature we always use. So please make sure highlight this part in your notebook to make sure you have this in your notebook always, so you can check this. So that means 2i times 3i, 6i squared. Let's write down here, 6i squared. And as I mentioned, I squared is -1. So it's 6 times -1. So which is 2i plus 6. Some student might want, can I write down 6 plus 2i? Doesn't matter, they are exactly same. Okay, so the big difference is when we deal with operation, when we deal with multiplication, we need to pay very, very special attention about this part, I squared, because it's always happened there. Okay, now let's check the last example. So some students might wonder, hey, this is so similar to FOIL. You are perfectly right. You can definitely use FOIL to do this, or use distributive property, whatever the way you like. So, but please make sure follow the order. Do not miss any terms. Or some student might wonder, can I use box method? Like, I write down the terms here to do this. Yes, you can. You can. You know what? You can definitely just use box method now, and also just pause the video, compare your answer with me later. You will definitely get the right answer with me by using the box method. Okay, now I'm going to just use like FOIL or distributive property, whatever they will call this. We're going to do 5 times 1, then 5 times 2i. So 5 times 1, 5. 5 times 2i, 10i. Okay, now let's do the second part. -i times 1, -i. -i times 2i. So let's write down that. -i times 2i. Okay, now let's continue to do that. So 5 plus 10i minus I. We're going to simplify the last part later. So we don't see any other constant number here, so I'm going to copy down 5. 10i minus invisible 1i here, so it's going to be 9i. And then let's deal with this one. So -i times 2i. We know I times I is going to be, so let's write down here. So the last part is going to be -2i times I squared. But remember, I squared is what? Yes, you're right. I squared is -1. So this time this part is going to be negative times -2 times -1 here. So I'm going to write down here is minus 2i squared. So I'm going to, let's use a box to circle this part so you focus on here now because this is our important part. So 2i squared, and then we know I squared is -1, so 2 times -1. I want to write down everything here for you to understand. If you think it's too many steps, in the future when you practice, you can definitely save some steps, not all though. But I want to show you exactly how do we do this so you have a very clear idea how do we do this. So -2 times -1 is +2. Now, see, now we have another constant term. So we are going to combine 5 and 2, which is 7 plus 9i. So some students, if you write down as 9i plus 7, perfectly right. They are exactly same. Okay, so that's how do we do the operation. We did addition, we did subtraction, we also did two kinds of multiplication. That's how do we do this kind of operations of complex number. So please check the steps here to see which step might confuse you. Do more practice. My suggestion is always you can even write down, you can even just check the number here to practice more. So make sure you understand this kind of process. Thank you so much for watching these videos and also study this topic with me. I hope these videos are helpful for you to understand complex number. So definitely review these ideas here. If you have any questions, make sure you email me, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.